What?
Aren't there many dropping out too?
Yes. You want me to go back to that?
Oh, you mean studying in college?
So going to university.
Okay.
University or colleges, more and more are going in. About 2/3 of them are women, about 1/3 of them are men. Okay, that's approximately the breakdown. The problem is that, in particular for the men, about half of them are failing out. The thing is, they're coming in unprepared. They're coming in unprepared. Most of them, large majority, I have that here also, come without a bagrut, without a psychometric test. They perhaps do a year of preparation, but after that, the year of preparation isn't enough for many of them. And many of them do not succeed in completing their studies. So yeah, more studying, that's good. More of them are failing out, that's not good. But the truth is that they then tend to get out to the labor market in any case. So I'm going to run through this and go over to practice.
It's all on your website.
What?
It's all on
Everything
your
is on our website. This is all in our new chapters that have now been put out. And let's just go over to. I'm going to skip over female and male. I'll show you one graph. This is more and more people working. Every single population, men and women, Haredi, Arab, non-Haredi, everybody's working more than they were in the past. It's all going up. But let me just show you one graph and then skip to the price stories. This is something that we did a very, very careful study, again, with our materials, that came to show the differences, the wage gaps between men and women. And we tried to explain, see what the wage gap is. Now the wage gap, if you just take the average woman salary for a woman, average salary for a man, without controlling for anything at all, the difference is about 32%. Now that's down from about 40%, but that's a bad number. It's a bad number because it doesn't take into account the fact that more women work part-time jobs than men. That even in full-time jobs, women work far fewer hours than men do on average. That the types of jobs they do are completely different. That the types of education they have are completely different. That their success in testing, let's use it as a proxy for quality, is completely different. That there are so many differences going on that's just a bad number. And that's the number that tends to be thrown out all over the place. Now, those types of numbers are thrown out without thinking about, well, what's really going on? Is there really, can you say discrimination? Or can you not say discrimination? And the answer is that when you do control for everything, well, the number of employment hours explains about 29% of that gap. The different occupations explains about 56% of that gap. The differences in success on the Bagrut, the psychometric test, explains about 13% of that gap. If you whittle it all out and see what's left, you tend to be left with about 5, 6, 7% is what you tend to be left with. And it's very, very likely that that's also something we just don't know how to explain. But the thing is that this starts early. And it starts very, very early in education. Women tend not to study math as much as men do. They don't study computers as much as men do. The things that are really the high growth, the high salary jobs, women in high school and elementary school are not taking them. They don't take the 5 units of math nearly as much as men do. They don't take the 4 units of math as much. They take a lot more 3. They take some of the 4, very much less 5. They're not getting the training. They're shying away from it early on. Now, why this happens? Well, it probably has to do with sociological reasons and with historical reasons, and with our history and who it is that raises the children and everything else that goes on in our society. But it's certainly not an issue of because they can't. Absolutely they can. But we take a look. We take that these are the places where you have the really, really high salaries, and that's about 25 to 30% of the people working in those are women. As opposed to being about 50% of the population. 25% to 30% are working there. They're working in education, they're working in health, but they're not working in the places that have the really high salaries. And in order to try to attack that issue, you've got to start from the bottom. You can't start from the top. That's got to start bottom all the way to the bottom. You've got to get more education. I don't know if we have time or we don't have time. It's up to you.
Not as much as we wanted.
We never have as much as we want. So I'm going to give you we'll really quickly run through a little bit of price stuff. And I'm going to skip that one. Let's go straight to here. This is showing you something called the excess price level. That means as follows. Price the price level inside the country depends on things like the socioeconomic status, how much income people have, income per capita. The more income per capita, the higher the price level is going to be. If you take that into account, okay, and you ask where are prices in Israel higher or lower than they should be, Israel ranks the second highest of all the OECD countries. The only country that is more expensive relative to where it should be is Japan. As you see, half the countries are below, half the countries are above, because we're asking where you are relative to where you should be. So the average is going to be 0, but Israel is way above. Israel is super expensive, and the question is, why is that happening? So this is what's happening. This is the Consumer Price Index. This is how much prices are going up over time, over a 15-year period. And prices in Israel should go up about 2% a year, because that's what was determined by the government, between 1% and 3%. The Bank of Israel's job is to make sure that that happens. It doesn't always succeed, but over this 15-year period, it did a pretty good job. 32% is about 2% a year, so Bank of Israel did its job fairly well. But it's not the same for all goods. And what you see is that you see goods that became really expensive, home maintenance and food and housing, and you see goods that became really cheap, furniture, housing goods, and clothing and footwear. And how much time do I have? What do I have?
This is about it. Let me guess what's the explanation. This was open to competition.
Yeah, very good. So the difference is, this was open to competition. And it happened in 1990, when the government decided to start lowering tariffs. And they said, we're going to lower tariffs, but not immediately. We're going to take 7 years and lower the tariffs over a 7-year period. And firms had to learn how to either sink or swim. Many of them sunk, many of them learned how to swim. Productivity went way up, and prices went way down. And that's been happening since 1990. That didn't happen in housing and in food. And I'm just going to jump to food and forget the housing, because you all have heard stories about housing. So,
Just a question, how do you open up housing for competition? I mean,
you can't import houses.
so what do you, so how do you?
Well, the
open-
problem in housing is different. The problem in housing is not competition. There's plenty of competition in building housing. The problem in housing was availability of land. And decisions made by the government 10 years ago in order to not to develop the center of the country, to only develop the periphery. And that had a lasting effect. It basically, supply was kept small, demand kept going up. Nobody wanted to live in the periphery, everybody wanted to live in the center. Demand went way up, supply didn't move, and that caused prices to go up. What do? You increase supply. But let's leave that, and it's the housing. This is going to be the last graph I'm going to show you. And I'm just going to show you what happened, and then I'll explain to you why it happened. This might be the last one to show you. What you see is in 2005, prices in Israel on average were 16% lower than in the OECD. You remember when the social protests were? 2011, right? So here's 2011. 19% higher than the average in the OECD. Now I'm going to tell you what happened, and I'll tell you why it happened without showing you the graphs since I'm out of time. What happened is as follows. In 2008, there was a worldwide panic about commodity prices. The panic came when people started talking about the emerging markets, about China suddenly becoming a huge problem in the world, and all these additional consumers who are going to want to be fed, and where are we going to get the food in order to feed them? And commodity prices shot through the sky. They went up by 200-300%. And as a result, firms that were producing food goods had to raise their prices. They couldn't afford not to raise their prices. So prices went up drastically. What happened is that after a short period of time, people realized it wasn't that big a deal. And prices went back down to where they were previously, both on the commodities and for the final goods, because competition forced it down. Except in Israel. Well, the commodity prices went down, but the goods prices, the final goods, didn't become cheaper. They stayed expensive. Why did that happen in Israel? Well, let's go back to the very first thing we talked about. Remember the small island economy? Israel is an economy that is small, which means you only have a few producers. And it also is an island economy in that it doesn't have good people to trade with, and there's a lot of protectionism in the food industry. The amount of food you're allowed to import into Israel is very limited. The tariffs are very high, the quotas are small. You can't get really free competition coming from abroad. By the way, the kosher problem is not that big a problem, it turns out. But it is in some goods, but not for the most part. And so now you have a situation where you only have a few producers. And if I'm one of a few producers and you're the other producer, and I see, gee, something external caused my prices to go way up to the sky, I'm happy with that. I don't want those prices to go back down. I didn't do anything bad. I didn't come and say, let's raise prices. I didn't create a cartel. But now that this happened, I'm really happy not to be the first one to lower my prices. So I'm going to be watching him. And if he lowers his prices, well, then I'll have to also. But if he doesn't lower his prices, this is something we call implicit collusion. Okay, it's not collusion, but it's implicit collusion. It's just that I'm happy with the situation. Why should I lower prices?
God forbid that you call him and...
That would be illegal. I would never do that. But I don't need to. I don't need to call him.
Just watch.
I just need to say, you know, these high prices are really good for me. Let's try to keep them higher a little longer and see what happens. Now, if there's competition coming from around, that's not going to work because other firms are going to be pouring things into the country. So if there are free imports into Israel, remember what happened with respect to the clothing and furniture. If the free imports, you know, prices will go down. But that's not going to happen when there's a concentrated industries.
Professor Weiss, wonderful tour of the horizon. I remind you that everything is on the website of the Taub Center. Few questions, quick ones, if you have. If not, thank you very much. This was
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.